Hey there, it's Kathy Mazak, and today I'm coming to you live to talk about 3 adjectives to describe your academic career and why choosing 3 adjectives to describe your career and the work we're going to do around that I'm going to teach you about today is really, really important to making the change that you desire in your career. So a lot of you are following our content because you want to write and publish more, but also because you want it to be done in a way that doesn't glorify overwork, in a way that feels spacious, and you're looking for guidance to manage the multiple responsibilities in your academic career as a professor. So maybe you've tried like a bunch of things in order to get that spaciousness in your career and at the same time make sure you have the publication results that you know you need in order to keep hitting your goals and to keep making your impact on your field and in the world bigger and bigger. So here's some things that people often try, right? You're trying to get more publications out, so you decide you're going to write every day. Okay, that's something a lot of people try. Another thing that you try, right, is just powering through, right? I like to say you are powerful, but you don't have to power through. That's not a method that's going to lead to consistent, great writing and publishing, because powering through means, right, like just keep going despite exhaustion. Just keep going despite having, you're not having time, and so you're doing your writing on the weekends, right? So that just power through. Maybe you've had a loss in your family. Maybe you've had an illness. And there is this kind of part of the culture of academia that says, just keep going. Just keep going. Don't take time off, never during the semester, right? Just power through. So maybe that's something you've tried in order to make sure that you keep having this flowing publication pipeline, right? Another thing that's very similar, right, is maybe you've tried working all the time, right? So this is actually, I would argue maybe it's the standard model that we see out there for academic writing or for academics, right? Which is that, during the workday, you're going to attend to students, you're going to give classes, you're going to run your lab, you're going to answer emails, you're going to fill out paperwork. And then all that writing and thinking that you need to do, that's actually your real job. That's the main thing, or the main thing that's going to keep you in your job, right? All of that, you should do that in the evenings or on the weekends, right? On the weekends is when you should be. That's when you can have the spaciousness. And what happens with all of those methods, right? With trying to write every day and inevitably failing, right? Like falling off course, or, it just is not something that's sustainable. Trying to power through even when you're exhausted, even when you've had a big life upset, or working all the time, right? Like putting your writing on the nights, weekends, and semester breaks, right? When you're like, oh, then I'll have the spaciousness, right? All of those 3 things lead to burnout. Like that's exactly the recipe for burnout. So it is both what the culture of academia kind of presents to us as the way to solve our writing problem, and also the exact recipe for burning out. So today I want to talk about a technique that you can use to start to shift away from those kind of cultural norms inside of academia and do something that might be kind of counterintuitive, right? And pay attention to the things that it might feel counterintuitive to pay attention to. So we're going to use a technique today that is called the 3 adjectives technique. I don't know. That's a very descriptive name. But basically, here's what we're going to do. I want you to think of three adjectives that you want to, right? Aspirationally, the 3 adjectives that, if you could have it your way, would describe your career. All right. So for example, maybe your 3 adjectives would be impactful, spacious, and productive, right? Maybe it would be calm, fulfilling, and prolific. I don't know. It's up to you. You got to figure out what the 3 adjectives are for you, right? Right now, maybe if you were to describe your career, it would be, overworked, stressed out, and exhausted, right? So I want you to replace those, current feelings. I want you to imagine something very aspirational for you, okay? And use 3 adjectives to describe that. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to you about the process for creating a career that adheres to those 3 adjectives, all right? That actually, that brings that career into life. So this is all like to say that you can change this cultural, these cultural beliefs about how you get your writing done and how you're successful in your career. You can actively work to push up against those and disrupt that kind of received culture and do academia differently. And I would argue that is the only way to do it. The only way to be successful going into the future is to think of what those 3 adjectives are and create that for yourself. All right, so let me give you an example. So we think, when I get tenure, then my career will be spacious. When I publish these, 10 papers that I have in my pipeline, then my career will be impactful. But what we actually have to do is we have to reverse our thinking. We have to create the feeling of those 3 adjectives first, and then we will be able to take the actions that will create the results of the career feeling like those 3 adjectives. So here's what I mean, all right? So I want you to really think about how your career feels, right? How does it feel? That's the counterintuitive thing. We spend so much time thinking about what to do. And what I want you to do is start to think about how you want things to feel, okay? So maybe you've gone to a productivity workshop on your campus and they taught you a method for being more productive and managing your calendar or something like that. And I want to say, that's great. You'll use those tools, but the real work of making change in your academic life, the real change that will clear your pipeline, the real change that will give you time to write, is in considering how you want your career to feel. Okay? So again, you're choosing 3 adjectives to describe how you want your career to feel. All right? Now, the next question is the key question. The next question is you keep those 3 adjectives in your head, and then I want you to fill in the blank with one of those adjectives. So the question is, what would a blank professor do? So if one of your adjectives is impactful, what would an impactful professor do? If one of your adjectives is calm or peaceful, what would a calm professor do? If one of your adjectives is, fulfilling, what would a fulfilled professor do? Okay? Or unrushed, unhurried, I think is something that many of us can relate to. Like, what would an unhurried professor do? And then what you're going to do is you're going to take that question, and as you're making decisions about your time, as you're making decisions about your pipeline, as you're making decisions about your career and about your schedule, that's the question you're going to ask yourself. You're going to use those 3 adjectives to guide decision making. So for example, the unhurried, right? Like, I'm not rushed, I'm unhurried, right? As one of your 3 adjectives. What would an unhurried professor do? So when you think about, okay, I got to work in the morning. My first decision is, what am I going to do when I sit down at my desk? And then you ask yourself, well, what would an unhurried professor do? Would an unhurried professor immediately fire up the computer and turn on the email, right? And try to field emails? Would an unhurried professor, sit down and try to write 500 words in the morning before she goes to class? Just start thinking about how can you flip the idea of I'm going to do actions and they are going to then have this result that I desire. And instead think, I am going to put the feeling of the result that I desire first, and then I'm going to align actions behind that. Okay? Do you see what I mean? So it helps you to make the decisions that are going to create those feelings in your career. So this is why, and to make it like even like a little bit more concrete, this is why in our program Navigate, and in all of our programs, but especially in Navigate, one of the key things that we talk about is repairing your relationship with writing. Okay. So if writing always feels like judgment, okay, like I'm preparing myself for judgment. If writing always feels like confusion, if it feels like stress, if it feels like all of these things, right? Then of course, when you sit down and you have an hour blocked on your calendar for writing, you're going to check email instead. Even though email is not pleasant either, right? But that's why we need to take stock of and put value in how different actions that we take in our career feel. Like not just what they produce or the results that they have, but how they feel, right? So for example, in Navigate, we talk a lot about, like I mentioned, writing relationship repair. We teach what we call our soaring system, which is like basically a set of actions that puts your relationship with your writing at the center of your action taking around writing. And what I mean by that relationship with writing is like, I want you to feel like happy to sit down to write. I want it to feel joyful. I want it to feel inspirational. I want it to feel that like hard in a good way that got you into being a scholar, right? So we have to take actions that create all of those feelings. So we can't leave our writing to like the scraps of time that we have, or maybe never have, right? During the week. It can't be something that gets your scraps. It has to be something that gets the most energized moments of your day. It has to be something that is infused with drive and energy, right? It's not something we do when we are already exhausted. And that means that you have to work to change your schedule sometimes. Like I realized I was always teaching during those moments of the day. And I, as I went through my career and got more control over my schedule with more seniority, and also just more guts to ask for stuff, right? I was able to move my classes so that my writing time was not, so that I wasn't always teaching during my writing time, or at least not every day, right? So that's just like one example. There's ways, techniques that we teach. We teach this our soaring system for writing. And part of our soaring system for writing is connecting with community. Another way that you can get that feeling of energy and drive and excitement around your writing is to do it in the same space with somebody, like in a co-writing space or in a co-writing Zoom call or something like that. Having a community around you of other people who are trying to also do this work is really, really helpful, okay? So that's the choose 3 adjectives to describe your career exercise. I actually think that it is one of the key things to getting your publication pipeline cleared and I say cleared, I would say flowing, like to get your publication pipeline flowing, right? It's never like we have 0 publications in the pipeline, although that's the language people often use, like is clear your pipeline. But this is something that's really, really important. It's a shift that I think for many academics who try to like logic their way through problems or really like, plan their way through problems. Like, and listen, I'm all about that as well. Like that's part of my motive or my modus operandi, right? But we also have to be thinking of these things. How do we want the career to feel? How do we want writing to feel? Because I don't think that any of you who are listening to this or watching this on YouTube are out there like, I'll do whatever it takes. I mean, of course, like you'll give your academic work your all and you're motivated and inspired. That's how you got a doctoral degree. That's how you got a tenure track position. You know, like you're not just like messing around, right? But it's also like not at the cost of your health, right? Not at the cost of your academic career is not worth it at the cost of your family, right? So that's why more and more, I think, as the vision of what work is and then the vision of what career is changing, we have to be the ones to enact something new and different. And first, we have to imagine it, and we first imagine it with those adjectives, and then we take action as someone who already has that career that we envision for ourselves. Okay, I hope this was helpful. If you are watching on YouTube, I would love for you to like this video. It helps other people to see it. If you're listening on the podcast, and whatever podcast app you're in, make sure you subscribe, share the podcast with a friend, share the YouTube channel with a friend who you think might benefit from what we talk about here. And also, please know that in the show notes and in the description of the video, I'm going to be putting the application for our Navigate program. If you're listening in real time, we are about to open the floodgates on applications for our Navigate 12-week pilot edition. Okay, so we've never run Navigate exactly this way before. The key difference between how we've run this program, which is over 5 years old and has seen hundreds of academics, over 500 academics have taken this program and published more because of it. What we're doing differently this time is that we're adding consistent weekly group coaching. And so you're going to move through with your cohort and your cohort coach, and you're going to do this 12-week hybrid online program. The content will be delivered through video, and you can also listen to it as audio lessons. There's workbooks and worksheets, and then the weekly call. And that weekly call will be a group coaching call that helps you kind of process the content, or it will be a co-writing call where you'll sit down with your peers and get to work on getting an article out the door. In this program, I'm going to be linking in the description. I will link the information sheet and then the link to apply. It is an application-only program. We're very carefully curating this community. And if you're watching live on YouTube, this is the time to apply, because in early next week, we are going to be sending the application to our whole list of 24,000 academics. And so we definitely want to get your application as an early adopter into our program. We're looking for 10 to 20 people to go through this 12-week Navigate program that starts at the end of February and ends in mid-May. Okay, so go check out the information, apply. Once you apply, you can have a phone call with me to help you make a decision. But basically, we are looking to help individual women and non-binary academics to change the culture of academia by changing their experience inside academia. We want to make those 3 adjectives that you discovered for yourself or you chose for yourself. We want to help give you the tools and the coaching and the support to make that a reality for your career. So have a wonderful, wonderful day. Apply for Navigate today. We can't wait to get started, and I'll see you next time. Bye.